times have you heard the grass is not always greener on the other side? And yet, whenever you restart, whenever you're starting over, when you realize that the way you've been living isn't the way that you want to continue living, you have to go through different circumstances, different experiments per se, really different experiences to understand what it is you really want. For me, myself, it was years of repeating the same thing in different places. I was a bartender. I worked in restaurants from the time that I could work until I got my hair license. And it was every few years I would end up moving to a completely different state just to get some kind of aliveness going on. And I could even tell, like, whenever I would start a new place of employment, everything was great in the beginning, learning the ropes, learning the system. And then once I got the hang of it, it was like, all right, now what? Like, honestly, for me, that's whenever I started smoking before shifts or having a couple of drinks. It's just to create some kind of livelihood, some kind of, honestly, now I think it was just chaos because that's what I was used to. And that was what was comfortable for me. That was the familiarity, the only thing that I knew. And it was just this repetitive cycle of doing the exact same thing for almost a decade. There's so much more that when I say the chaos that I created, it was chaos of having something in my life that wasn't the same, but from at the perspective that I knew and the limited thinking, it was almost like creating some kind of like aliveness within myself to remind myself that I was still alive. Because in the cycle that I was on, it was just autopilot. It was just the repetitive doing the same thing that I knew. I knew I could make money. I knew I could survive by being in a restaurant. And I didn't realize at the time that with knowing that, and that was my familiar, that was my autopilot, it was also the culprit for me going home and getting smashed. My drinking and my smoking was my outlet for creating the freedom that I was searching for. And for so long, like up until recently, honestly, the freedom was what I craved. Like even getting my hair license and then owning my own salon, which was my childhood dream, I wanted the freedom, like being in just this enclosed area, this room with one person at a time. While I really enjoyed doing hair, it felt suffocating and it felt very restrictive. And all I wanted was freedom. All I knew the word that I wanted was freedom. And throughout the years, it took me a while to even realize there's different kinds of freedom. There's different areas of freedom that it makes a lot more sense to get clarity on. You have financial freedom, which I thought was what I really wanted, because if you have financial freedom, then you can have time freedom. You can create the freedoms that you want in your life, because with money, you can do anything, right? Not always the case, but that was my big motivator. That's been my motivator for life, having a lot of money. So that was the first one that I ran after. What's funny now is I have the time freedom. After leaving and deciding that I was ready for a change, I have the time freedom. And like they say, whenever you either work to live or you live to work, and you might have the time, but you don't have the funds. But if you have the funds, then you don't have the time. And that's kind of the vicious cycle that I've been in now. Again, there's been limited beliefs, limited understandings of what I am capable of and what's available to me. But luckily, throughout this little few years journey that I've had, I've kind of honed in. I've honed in on all the things that I don't want. And now we're focusing on the things that we do want. There's a lot of different ways, but the major freedom that I didn't even realize that I was super craving was like a mental freedom. A mental freedom from those limiting beliefs. A mental freedom from all the self-critic claims, the little stories that I had inside my head. All the ping pong back and forth, different ideas and thoughts that just completely surrounded my mind. That was what I wanted the freedom of. Now, when I say that I used to work multiple jobs at a time and then I would relax by using substances, this all started at a very young age. And it all started with self-medicating, if you will, to be more social, to clear out that constant madness within my head and just allow to be me, right? Like that was where I really soaked in and I really hung on to that clutch of having the liquid courage or having a couple tokes to be able to unwind from the madness of being a server, being a bartender, of having all these different thoughts and all these worries, all these attaching to all these different people's ideas and trying to be this perfect person, trying to be the perfect person per situation. Because if you've ever been in a restaurant business, at least in the front of the house, you know that the way that you show up, the way that you cater to your clients is the way that you make money. And honestly, I've carried that for so long that was something that really just always configuring how to be the perfect person for the person in front of me. Now, a lot of people will call this people pleasing. I called it people pleasing. Being unaware of that, you don't even realize of what you're doing. You don't realize that the noise inside your head isn't even your noise to really be holding on to, unless you enjoy that. But where I have come to the conclusion, you don't know until you know. And there's a lot of things that we don't know. So in order to know, you have to go through these experiences. You have to put yourself in different circumstances to have these experiences outside of your typical norm. Because how else are you supposed to know unless you know? I can only imagine that this only makes sense to a handful of people. But I would love to hear in the comments, have you found yourself catering to everyone else? Is it just natural? I don't have kids, but I feel like this is like the mother. This is like the mom who is always taking care of everybody else and then forgetting about themselves. I'm coming to the realization that this whole self-abandonment that I have put myself into has been this calling, if you will, that I'm working towards rectifying, honestly. You don't know until you know. That has probably been my biggest aha of the week. So I would love to hear from you. Is the freedom that you're searching for more of an inside freedom? Or are you more interested in the financial freedom, in the time freedom, or some other freedom? I still have to say that I think that having the freedom of up here will allow the freedom of everything else. But I'd be interested to hear from you. So let me know. Until next time.